Namaste, guys, and welcome to the webinar series by CEO Lounge. I have been jokingly asking to all my corporate friends that they have actually become a grasshoppers from being a globetrotters, and hopefully we're all looking forward for this lockdown to get over on Monday, but now it's been extended by 2 weeks. So a lot of questions comes to our mind. The question is that what is going to be the welcome back strategy? Is it going to be the beginning of normalcy as we knew it? Or what is the tip for the businesses, big or small, that are getting ready for a breakthrough? And to get the answers to these and much more today, we have my five very dear friends and people I would likely call as my corporate heroes. None of them need any formal introduction. So friends, put your seatbelts. Let's get into an engaging conversation with Varun Bedi, Managing Director, Britannia, Hari Menon, Founder and CEO, Big Basket, Martin Shroff, Managing Director and CEO, Eureka Forbes, Karan Bajwa, Managing Director, Google Cloud. And to moderate the session, we have our Pizza Man, the former Managing Director and CEO, Domino's, and accomplished singer, Ajay Kaur. Ajay, we're all set to go.
No, thank you, Deepak, and namaskar to everybody from a distance. Firstly, praying for everybody's safety, your kith, your kin, your families, and of course, your employees. Today's topic, interestingly, Deepak and me, when we were kind of embarking on this journey, we thought this is probably the topic for the day. Enough has been spoken so far about what can be done, how tough the situation is, what will be done, what should be done, and so on, which means a lot of things, but still in theory, not practical. We thought as we are getting closer to the date of lockdown getting opened, as the Prime Minister starts, informing businesses that, okay, you can go back to kind of opening them in a small way, big way. I think the day of reckoning or the moment of reckoning for CEOs is coming. As, Jack Ma rightly said, I think yesterday, that the purpose or the objective of businesses in 2020 should be that of pure survival. And if you come at the end of 2020 and you're surviving, which means you would have made some sort of profit. So he is make it sound like a totally tactical, almost a battle which is being fought on a day-to-day basis. Cut to Mr. Deepak Parekh, who a few days back said that when you hit offices or when you are trying to attack your businesses today, you should ideally be forming two teams. A team A, which is looking at the moment, and a team B, which is actually looking at the future. Today, the dilemma which CEOs have is the day they hit office, the clock would start ticking from that moment, which means, all the decision-making time would start there and then. There is no, we should do this and we can't do this. They will have to do things. Whether it is deciding between strategy and tactics, whether it's deciding between medium-term or micro short-term, between people, costs, and profitability and survival and so on. So it's a very interesting topic, according to me, and that's why top 5 things you would do right now, being the invitation which I'm throwing at 4 luminary CEOs that we have in front of us today. I would start with Varun. Varun, please tell us what are the top 5 things that you would do practically when you hit office, probably on 4th morning or whenever you plan to do it. What would be those 5 things?
So Ajay, frankly, whatever I would do when the lockdown opens has already started to happen. Frankly, the journey for us has been a very, very different one, because we are in essential goods, and I'm sure Hari has, been through the same thing, as we have. But, just to start off, my perspective on this whole thing, first of all, I think it's an event which is a great leveler. Never in recorded history has there been such a widespread disruption, and in equal measure all over the world, all at the same time, right? I can't think of anything else that has been of such magnitude, right? Second, I think all assumptions are being smashed, right? And continuously new assumptions are coming in and they are being challenged, right? So we are all learning to avoid hindsight bias, and we are taking uncertainty very, very seriously, all of us, in whatever that we are doing, right? So I think there isn't any computer program which could have, predicted or given us, a sort of a forecast on what's going to happen, right? We are under attack. All of us are under attack, but there is no physical force which is attacking us. There's no enemy really who's coming after us. It's just nature which has attacked us at this point in time. And when event like this happens, you don't have a common enemy. So what do? The best thing that you can do at a time like this is to adapt, right? And the challenge really for all of us is that of adaptation. And this is really testing us on a day-to-day basis on what is the capability that we have to adapt to a situation like this. And frankly, the way I look at it, I'm looking at this crisis to build resilience, my own resilience, my organization's resilience, and also productivity as we go forward, right? So that, to my mind, is what this is all about. Now, just quickly getting to what's happening as I see it on the world stage. Clearly, China is becoming the villain of the piece in this whole thing, right? But they are doing things in their own way. They continue to be decisive and progressive in their own self-centered way. US has clearly, lost out in this race. As Trump handles this situation, very clearly, US is losing this race of, taking the leadership in a crisis like this. Our Prime Minister has come out on top. I must say that he's been very, very decisive, and he's taken this challenge very, very seriously. The issue really is going to be, how do you sustain this long-term lockdown as it destroys economic viability for a somewhat challenged and I would say a fragile economy like India, right? So, and other challenges that exist in India clearly are, I would say that as a country, we do not have the same hygiene habits that even some of our poor neighbors have. And I've worked in various countries. I worked in the Philippines and in Vietnam, and so all of these countries, the per capita income is about the same. But as you walk down a road, you will see, everything is neat and tidy. It might not be the best infrastructure, but people are clean. People are wearing clean clothes. They might not be expensive clothes, but clean clothes. If you were to do that, in your part of the country, Ajay, in Delhi, if you were to walk, or even in Bombay, if you were to, you will see that people do not care too much about their hygiene. The clothes will be dirty, wouldn't be washed, etc. So I think this is going to teach us a lesson or two as far as hygiene is concerned. Medical aid, I think we are a great country for medical aid. We have people coming in, but we still haven't had the ability to create the kind of infrastructure that is required for this kind of a thing. So I think those are the challenges that we'll face, right? But I think the most important thing finally for a country like India will be to create herd immunity for people. I think that's how it's going to happen. Protect the old and the weak, and let the strong and the young to get to work and do what is required. I think that's what's going to be really, really important, because otherwise we will test our medical infrastructure to a limit where it'll start to crack up, right? Now, from an organization standpoint, how have we coped with this? I think we've coped reasonably well to this situation. Obviously, the first 10 days was a shock for all of us, and we didn't know what to do. So we were struggling. The first thing that we did, first principle that I followed was that connectivity and trust, right, are the best glue for a team in times of crisis. So, we made sure that we created that connectivity and that trust. So we set out some protocols. The first protocol was obviously on environment, health and safety, right? So we had very clear SOPs for our factories, whatever was operating, right? Very clear SOPs, social distancing, whatever else that we are talking about. I'm not going to get into the details, but that was very, very important. We also got COVID insurance for any person who was in any way exposed to the external environment. So we did that. We also, created the right transportation for people who were coming from villages close to our plants, etc., with the right distancing between, the people sitting in the bus, etc. So all of that was done. So that was the first and most important thing. Second, what I did from maybe the third day onwards, we started a daily review meeting, and believe me, the connectivity hasn't been like this in the last 7 years that I've been with the organization. So we have a daily review meeting where we, every day we talk about what is the progress of the last day, what are the priorities as we go forward. And the entire executive committee is on that meeting. It was very important to get government connectivity because, as all of you must have felt as well, it was very important to get permissions. It was very important to, get them to understand the issues that you were facing on the ground. So government connectivity was extremely important. Then I started a weekly town hall meeting because it was important to tell the entire organization on what was the progress being made and also to listen to them, right? Listening to them was also important because, when you're sitting at home, idle mind is a devil's workshop. So a lot of things sort of start coming in and you're reading every day, you're reading news of job losses and this and that. So they want to talk. So listening was very, very important, and we did that as well. We tightened our costs to the limit, right? And the principle was no more capital expenditure till it becomes extremely, extremely necessary, right? We also did a protocol on how do we connect with our customers remotely, right? So all of us who were sitting at home, we've got a database. So we chalked out which town, village we are going to be adopting. And we would connect with 40 customers every day on the phone just to check out what was happening, whether they were getting, our stocks, what was the situation on the ground, were they safe, etc., etc. So I think that protocol worked really well, and we compile that into a report, and we see it in our daily meetings, right? So we did that. We also tied up with CII to train stores on how they should, create the atmosphere within the store to keep the store owner safe as well as the customers safe. This is an initiative called the Suraksha Store, which we are a part of. It's a lot of FMCGs, about 12 FMCGs are a part of this. So we did that as well. So I think I'm quite enjoying this new way of life. Frankly, if you think about it, business is now stable and moving in the right direction. Frankly, all meetings start on time and end on time. We are much more better connected than we've ever been in the past. We are working harder than we worked in the past. So it's a great place to be. And I think there is a lot that we can get out of it as we move forward. So that's my 5 things. I'm sorry I took that to more than 5, but that's my take on the situation.
Not a worry, Varun. All pearls of wisdom. Honestly, I loved the last statement of yours that you are enjoying. You and your team are enjoying this. Yeah. The key message is that a big CEO of the country is saying that even in adversity, find ways of enjoying it. While I didn't hear too many strategic things, and the reason being that there is so much of volatility and ambiguity in the whole environment, but how to cope with uncertainty, and most importantly, how do you still do cultural binding, the connectivity and trust building to basically reinforce your culture, were some of the big takeouts for me. Brilliant. We move on to Marzin. Marzin, your business, as much as Varun's business, is connected to people's homes. So what do you believe are your 5 things that you would do, or some of them you may be already doing when you hit office on the D-Day? Hello.
Sorry, I was on mute. So
have you heard the question?
I did. I was just on mute. But so I don't think there's going to be one D-Day. The country is going to open up in phases. Every day is a different day, and there's so much of volatility. Last evening we heard that the lockdown has been extended by another 2 weeks and another 2 weeks, and I think this is going to go on in the red, orange, green situation. So I think the country will open up in a phased manner. But nevertheless, on the first day that I am allowed to step out, I'm going to put on my protection equipment and I'm going to go visit customers along with some of my service technicians. And why am I going to do this? We are in touch with about 8 million customers on an annual basis. Eureka Forbes enters a kitchen every second, not to sell a machine, but to service a machine. And in that scenario of being able to take care of our customers, we really need to ensure that we make every salesperson, every service technician, every foot on street go out and reach out to our customers. During this lockdown, we've had so many requests. We have about 45 to 50,000 customer issues pending, which we've tried to resolve over the video and try to see if customers can look at resolving their own issues on the phone and via video chat. So it's been a very interesting time. So the first thing I want to do is set an example to show how we can go out there and service our customers and take care of them, because they really need us for safe drinking water. For 38 years as a company, we've been fighting bacteria and viruses. It's all we know. So from the first day we were born, we've been against bacteria and viruses, and we've been fighting them for all these years. So I don't think anybody knows these little creatures and microorganisms like we do. Whether it's in your air, we purify your air through our air purification equipment. Whether it's your home and cleaning it, we have steam sterilization equipment and vacuum cleaning equipment. Whether it's through even your air conditioning, which we now call health conditioners, it removes all bacteria and virus in the room 99.9% within a period of 4 hours. So whether it's the water you drink, the air you breathe, the home you live in, it's all about cleanliness and bacteria and viruses. So really for us, this is a massive opportunity. With the way things are panning out in the world, it's key that we look at health and hygiene as a big segment in consumers. So this is something which is changing around the world, and for us, it's a big thing. Coming back to what I would look at and what we've been looking at, I mean, most of what Varun said also applies to us. We have regular reviews, and all reviews start on time. Not all of them end on time, but yes, we do have our reviews. We have our core team, which is like a pilot room in a cockpit where we do this. We monitor the health of all our employees. As of now, the good Lord has been kind to us. Only one person has tested positive from our entire team, and one partner of ours is in quarantine. And the young man who's been tested positive is fighting, and he's doing well. He's still in hospital, but he will come out. So we monitor our customer health and well-being. We communicate. We have video broadcasts. We have ongoing days. And almost on a daily basis, if not on a bi-weekly basis, almost every single customer, every single employee of us has been touched through a call by one of our leaders on the ground. We have a lot of people who are feet on street. So as I mentioned, we enter a kitchen every second. We have about 10,000 people on the service side, 4,000 people on the sales side, and a lot of them come from smaller towns and villages. So some of them could reach their villages back before the lockdown. Some of them couldn't. So they need help. So our leaders reach out, try to help them out and do this. Some of these stories that we have seen from customers who claim that, they've been serviced by us even in these tough times is very heartwarming. It actually warms your heart to hear that there are such fantastic Eurochamps, people out there who go out beyond the call of duty to reach out to our customers. So that's on the second part of it. The third part of it, of course, is the cash and the liquidity side. I mean, it's an amazing time. And I was reading a research by a company called Avalon, and they did this study across all the listed companies on the stock exchange. And what was interesting to see is that 68% of companies, that's over 2 out of 3 companies, have no cash cover beyond 2.5 months. Let me repeat this. 2 out of 3 companies, listed companies, will have no cash cover beyond 2.5 months. Now, this is something that is quite a scary situation. We are already almost 1.5 to 2 months down the road already. And in a little while, most people are going to run out of cash. Very scary. And for us, this is something that we've been looking at. Where do we cut costs? We are renegotiating everything from our business partners to our suppliers to our rent. We're even cutting down our guest houses to see where we can save on this. So this is a very, very critical thing on managing cash and managing liquidity. The fourth, I think, is an opportunity for us to reskill. So we are looking at how we can use this time to reskill our people through video chats, through Zoom, through Teams, through Microsoft. This is something that is going on an ongoing basis. We have regular webinars across the board for our people, our business partners, our retailers. All of them are getting an opportunity to reskill. And I would say one more thing is this has given us an opportunity to sit back and reflect. You know, when you're so caught up in your day-to-day work, you're so caught up that you tend to get operationalized. In this, people have been able to rethink. So when we've divided our core team, we have a core team into 5 large projects that we're looking out for reimagining the future. So these are the 5 key things that we will be looking at from a strategic perspective. We have regular calls on these. We have monitoring systems. We have a project plan in place. So when we reopen in the next 3 to 6 months, there will be one strategy. The next 6 months to 18 months will be a longer term approach of reimagining our business. Where will we be? How will we be? What will be the opportunities for us? And where do we need to cut the flab and reimagine ourselves? So this has been a good, I would say, I would echo what Varun said. It's been a kind of an interesting time, kind of a good time. And consumer behavior would have changed a lot during this time. I sense that companies will be rechanging also. Many things will happen. Models will move from CapEx to OpEx. Companies will become leaner, thinner. So these are very, very exciting times. And there's one thing that I keep saying, that which doesn't kill you makes you stronger. It's always been my favorite phrase. So that which doesn't kill you makes you stronger. And everything will be okay at the end. If it's not okay, it's not the end.
Merzen, golden words. My takeouts, some outstanding ones there. To start with, the focus on internal and external customers, how you would contact customers yourself at your level, on foot, on feet, remarkable. And how in this period you have contacted every single of your employee, showing your concern and showing your love for them. I think an outstanding benchmark for everybody to follow. What I also liked in the language which you and Varun both are using is the war room. It's almost like going back to management and business schools where they would take a lot of inspiration from these books written on war, how it's almost come a full, circle where again, everybody seems to be fighting a battle or a war almost on a day-to-day basis. And last, which is your contribution towards strategy, because one of my questions in the section part B, when all of you are through with your initial few words, will be on how are you maintaining the balance between envisioning strategy, future versus the micro short term and so on. And I'll come to that. So brilliant stuff. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm told there are more than 500 participants listening to some of the best minds, best CEOs in the country. So keep listening as I move on to our third hero, which is Hari. And Hari is, as you know, is the head of Big Basket, which is like in the middle of all the action right now. So Hari, straight to you and your, take on what are the top things that you would do, or you and your team would do during these tough times.
Hari, you're on mute.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah. So Ajay, I'm going to start with my, with my favorite, as I call the COVID theme, is something that I've learned the hard way over the last 1 month, and really learned it the hard way. And I've coined it, by saying maybe I'll write about it, a few months later. And that theme is called, how do you do more with less, right? Fundamentally, we actually never shut, right? So we've been operating right through. So there's no question of, starting back and starting all over again. We went through a horrendous last 1 month. It's got a little better now, but I don't want to talk about it right now because it's, we've gone through experiences which are absolutely unprecedented, which we've never seen before. People getting beaten up, getting thrown into police stations, put behind bars, etc., etc. We've gone through all of that, when we started operations, during COVID, just during the lockdown. I must also state that the government has been absolutely outstanding, in terms of the support that we got in the initial 2-3 days. They got us up and running in about 2 days because we had to shut for 2 days because all our people just ran away when all these atrocities happened and stuff. So so coming back, I think through this period, the one thing I've learned is that we must figure out how we are going to do more with less. And this is a theme I am actually getting right across my organization. It's worked really well. And let me give you a few examples, right? What it means, we are absolutely desperately short of people, right? And as we speak right now, today I can hire 5,300 people, right? Just to kind of meet what I call the COVID demand. And it was 12,000 people, just a couple of weeks back, and we've just been hiring because all our people went away. And so we've learned, how to really tweak processes and tweak technology to make sure that we just up productivity to such an extent that we're able to deliver the same level that we were doing pre-COVID with almost half the number of people. And that is what caused that theme. And then it extends to things like, how do you make cash last longer? How do you do, things that will make sure that you don't have to go to markets again to raise money for quite some time because that's not going to be available. How do you make work from home very effective? And we've just enjoyed this last 1 month. It's been real, great fun doing this because of productivity going up, because people are finding themselves a lot more productive at home. I completely agree with Varun. All meetings start on time. There is absolutely no delay. Nobody just coming from different floors, joining, 5 minutes later, 10 minutes later. Everybody bang on is there on time. Meetings finish on time. The days are planned and organized so well. And so in the process, what's happened is we're giving up, a couple of floors in our office. Already done that, and so that's going to save costs and goes back to that same theme of how do you do more with less. So that's one thing that me and my team are driving across the organization. It's also applying personally. I'm finding that in the last 1 month, we've all learned how to do more with less, right? So we buy just the essentials, just few basic things that you operate with. You don't have all the luxuries that you want, but you're still enjoying it and having fun, which and hence I know it's really working. That's one. The second critical thing that I need to drive and we need to drive across the organization is safety, right? It is so critical. We've never had this worry. We've never had this problem in the past of making sure that we create such stringent protocols to make sure that, one, our employees are safe, because, we've got about 30,000 people right now, right out there, going every day to our distribution centers, to our hubs, going and delivering groceries to customers, etc., etc. So essentially, I think we just need to get better and better as far as safety is concerned, be it social distancing, be it, temperature measurement, be it sanitization across all our places. From a customer standpoint, we've done so much to make sure that they are safe too. For example, very quickly, we kind of got what's called contactless delivery in, where the customer doesn't have to even see the delivery boy. All they have to do is leave a bag outside. We just deliver and go. Thanks to which we had to move, systems to do only, prepaid orders. So cash on delivery is out so that there's no cash handling. So we did a lot to make sure that a lot of safety protocols are built in, and we just need to get better and better. We are expecting a few people to get back to office, but that's going to be very few in our corporate side. So we're already thinking of what we need to do there to kind of make sure that transport is taken care of, the way they sit is taken care of, the way they eat in our canteens is taken care of, etc. So that's the second thing. I think building safety protocols, something that we've never done before, just needs to get stronger and stronger to make sure that employees are safe and customers are safe. And that's the second point. Number three is basically, as an organization, we are starting to get geared on trying to figure out what are the consumer behavioral changes that are going to come around, right? Right now, it's very simple. People are just buying, basic essentials, right? Absolutely basic essentials. We used to have about 40,000 products in our catalog pre-COVID. We are now down to 3,000, right? And some of those critical ones are what I think Varun sells to us, stuff from Britannia and stuff. But 3,000 to 38,000, right? So right now it's pretty simple, right? It just is just easier to manage because you have smaller number of SKUs, and so some of those constraints, don't worry us. But as we go forward, we need to be clear on what's going to happen in terms of consumer behavior. Are people going to have enough money to spend? What's going to be what's going to be, average order sizes going forward, what are people going to look for, is what we need to work on. And that's number 3. So we've got a separate team really sitting right now and figuring out, as things open up, going forward, what are the things that should bring back, right? There's no point in bringing all the 35,000 SKUs back. It's only going to put a lot of pressure on us. But we need to bring back stuff. And hence, the understanding of changes in consumer behavior going forward is very critical. That's number 3. Number 4, very clearly, and this I think should have been number 1, but it's something that we are actually working on for the future, is how do we build for scale? Very, very clearly, what the trend is that things are going to move online. That's very, very clear, right? I think there's fear going to stores, social distancing, standing there, physically contacting people, etc., etc. And hence, there is going to be a very, very serious movement that's going to happen, with people moving online. And that puts serious pressure on all the online players. Let me give you a sense of some numbers, right? The online grocery business in India, the grocery business in India, the food and grocery business in India is about $700 to $800 billion, okay, in that range. That's the entire food and grocery business. The online business is 1% of that, okay? The modern trade that we call, which is the Reliances of the world, the DMarts of the world, the future, big bazaars of the world, is 4%. Modern trade plus online put together in grocery is just 5%, right? 95% is the kirana business, is the mom and pop business, is the stuff that happens in tier 3, tier 4 towns. And that's the size of the business. Now, as soon as COVID hit, the expectation was that 1% suddenly becomes 20, 30, 40, 50%. Because suddenly we had everybody wanting to go online because nothing was open, nothing was available. So overnight, from being $1 billion business, you're expected to become a $300 billion business. And that's not possible. And that's what's caused, a lot of pain. The narrative was that, we aren't getting it right, etc., etc. But to give you a similar number, when the lockdown happened, we were down to some 20,000 orders or 25,000 orders, right? From a normal of 150,000 orders that we normally do. We are now doing 300,000 orders a day, right? And that's the scale that we bought. Much, much higher than pre-COVID, but you still get big bets because, you're still not meeting what we call the COVID demand. And that's what a separate team is sitting and working on, is that how do you build for scale? So the team is looking at scale. The team is looking at consumer behavior changes. So it tells us what exactly we should be selling and not selling. And when I say scale, it includes all aspects of scale: people, infrastructure, vans, etc., assets, blah, 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 right? That we need to do. And lastly, I think one of the things that I've learned again, the hard way right through this 1 month is that it's absolutely critical to communicate. And that's what we constantly need to do. Varun talked about town halls. We talked about daily meetings internally. I have reached out to customers using social media, when all the bashing was going on, and that helped, created a lot of empathy, just to explain to customers what we're going through and what the cause and what the reason for all this is. And that helps. And so the critical thing to do at this stage is basically communicate. Employees, customers, stakeholders, and make sure that everybody is in sync with you in terms of what you're doing. So Ajay, those are my 5 things.
Excellent, Hari. We know the story of how Big Basket has, in these tough times, been one of the winners in terms of going to zero and then scaling up almost back to where you were pre-COVID. And what I loved the most in what you said was doing more with less. And I think that's something which we will talk about in detail a little bit later. Also, on consumer preferences, the changes, which is a bit more strategic topic. And similarly with employees, while connectivity and all that in the short run is great to keep the team going, but the anxiety at job losses, pay cuts and all that, how do you manage that imbroglio? And we'll talk about that in a moment. Moving now to Karan. Karan, as you all know, is the head of Google Cloud, and he's in this job only for 2 months. So he's got the additional, a challenge of finding his own place in the organization while he's a luminary in his own rights, and also at the same time handling COVID and its aftermath in his company. So Karan, please enlighten us with your thoughts. What are the top 5 things that you would do?
Thank you, Ajay. Thank you very much. And good morning, everyone. I really hope everyone's strong, safe, and making the best of the situation that we can. This really is so unprecedented. All of the speakers spoke about all assumptions being smashed. It's never something we planned for. What is really important for me is the way our country is responding. I think in the best possible way, given our means and our complexity. I could not think of a better way that our country could have responded. Ajay, one of the testimonies for me is that on a Saturday afternoon, we have 570 people on this bridge talking to us and listening to us. That tells us people are willing to engage, wanting to learn, and that's a very, very positive thing. This is throwing up challenges every single day on many fronts. Technologically, if I see, which is the industry I come from, and by the way, your point was that what are the 5 things we would do on day one? I believe, and I agree with Varun, that those things have started. Day one's not going to be radically different from where we are today. Not more than 20-25% of the workforce is going to be able to come into offices, at least in the early days. So I don't expect anything radically changing. So I'll talk about what are the things we're doing now that will only amplify as we get to our workplaces. On the technology front, which is our core as a company, it's extremely challenging. BCP, which everyone had a plan on, is not working for most people because nobody planned for the scope and scale of complexity and challenges that would come in. So that is being challenged. And I'm seeing it not just in the small customers, in the largest of customers. I'm talking about the top 5 in every single customer vertical. And I'll share some of those things with you. So it's challenging the most mature of customers, while of course the ones that are early stages of adoption of technology. For employees, I sense from the early kind of questions around how we're going to handle this, is getting to fatigue, is getting to anxiety. I'm seeing that a lot of our employees are not just engineered to work from home. Their home places are not conducive for multiple people in a home working from home for long hours. It's just not set up that way. So that's starting to settle in. Equally so for our case, while there is a challenge in the market, we are actually ramping. We are hiring on scale. I'm literally interviewing tens of people over a week, and we are onboarding these people. And while we are very excited about bringing these people in, a challenge also is how do we create the experience? It's so important as a new employee walks in, how do we recreate the experience? A very important constituent for us is our partner community, which is how we go to market to our customers. These are largely small and medium businesses. They are concerned, they're very anxious, and that's another community we are very concerned about. My big learning, and I'll reiterate what was just said by Hari, my big learning is there is absolutely no replacement for engagement and outreach. That is the single most important thing that you can do in this time consistently with all your constituents. I'll touch on a few things. On the technology front, as I said, it's challenging the largest of customers. So our big challenge was, how do we make sure that the best of technology that is available, and most of you know that technology company create tiers of usage, a high-end tier and then a basic tier. What we thought is, how do we democratize that and take the best of our technology to every single customer out there? And the one big challenge was people were not engineered for 100% work from home. Most customers had work from home philosophy set up, but for a part of their workforce, 20, 30, 40%, when it stretched to 100%, they started breaking apart. And then we saw a host of security issues starting hitting people as well, which was very concerning. So what we did is we took our kind of premium tier of working from home capability, which started with what we call as Google Meet or Hangouts in the past. We took up that capability and opened it up for any customer who wants to use it. And we wanted to remove the barrier of getting into commercial conversations at this stage. So it said, use it for the next 6 months. Nobody's going to talk to you about commercials, but open up and take it to customers. We are seeing hundreds of customers. And I'm not at liberty to say the names, but this is names that provide to you on a daily basis, the largest banks that you work with, the largest telecom companies that you work with. In tens of thousands, we had to turn up literally in 24 hours capability to work from home for these entities. The mission we went out with is serve, not sell. That's kind of the philosophy we took when we went out. And then we realized another important aspect, that while we addressed the businesses, the consumers were not addressed. The consumers were still struggling with variants of what they were using, and there were challenges in both in scale as well as in performance. So what we just did yesterday, which was another marquee thing, is we opened that same technology to any user in the country, across actually globally. Any consumer, individual consumer wants to use technology, that technology is available, again, free of cost to that individual. We are seeing a take-up rate of about 3 million users per day. our usage on the platform has gone up 30x. So I think we I call it the democratization of technology at this time, which is an important factor in bringing it. Employees, which is the second constituent, many people have said multiple things. It's so important that we engage in many levels. At a country level, we have a very large workforce in the country, within our different businesses, within the small work groups. So we are doing a host of things, and a lot of the people have spoken about the weekly town halls, the fun activities, actually some very interesting things we are doing. We just started a campaign on creating a music video for all the employees to sort of send some inputs, and we'll create a music video, engaging them in fun activities, things like yoga sessions, small capabilities, but engaging people. We have a very interesting program we launched, which we call as Googlers Engaging Googlets. Googlets are the children of Googlers. So a very engaging program on how parents at this time can engage young children in these challenging times. Ergonomics and educating people about working from home and all the nuances that come from a complex work environment at your home. That's something that we are working on. So a host of activities, that is engaging employees, because that is a very, very important part of what we do in this business. Government then tends to be a very important constituent for us as well, simply given the task at hand, and that they are limited now in terms of assets they have and people they have working with them. We worked a lot with the government on during these times, again using technology in a massive way. The first challenge for us was to curb the misinformation. That was a very important challenge thrown to us by the government. So we brought to bear all of our assets, start from search, from maps, from YouTube, and even things like Google Pay. We brought those assets together and made sure that information was being clustered in the right manner and all through authentic sources. So people could actually come to these properties, and they come in the billions to these properties. They could get a single source of information which is authenticated. On properties like Google Pay, we created a COVID-19 spot, which actually helps people to not just identify which grocery stores are open in their nearest area, but equally so, allow them to engage and support the government in initiatives. The whole PM Cares initiative the government launched, we are now clocking over 105 crores in terms of contribution through Google Pay for the government as well. And then, of course, there is a lot of the global work that we did, including a very large grant we came out with in excess of $800 million for different businesses and governments across the world. A very marquee one was the partnership with Apple, which was again breakthrough in my own sense, about how two organizations that have traditionally competed in the world have now collaborated to do things like contract tracing. So that work is underway as well. And the list continues, enabling teachers, students in the hundreds of millions to embrace technology. My view as we step out of COVID, Ajay and team, tech will be viewed very differently. The technology nuances, the biases that have existed, the assumptions that people have made in embracing technology will fundamentally get rebooted. Organizations will have to break a lot of tradition as they think about technology. I just give you one example of an organization that has over 400,000 people in the country, which is TCS. And TCS just declared that they're going to set a new normal, that by 2025, only 25% of their workforce will be in offices, 75% will work from home. Now they're learning from this experience and actually changing and transforming our scale. That will completely change their cost modeling. Besides being ready for all these eventualities, it will change their cost economics as they go to market as well. So people will have to break tradition as they come out of this. If we go back to the usual, that's the most dangerous situation. So I think everybody's got to watch out for that. Technology has also been fairly hammered by a lot of regulatory barriers around itself. I believe those barriers will be lowered. If not totally gone, the barriers will be lowered. And the workplace will be very, very different. Just to sort of say what I said, I don't believe the workplace is going to be ever the same again. Forget about the near future. The near future is going to start seeing about 25 to 30% of the people coming in. So things like employee safety is absolutely paramount. We'll have to think about the whole emotional thing of people coming back to work, because a part of the workforce is coming, a large part of the workforce is going to be back at home. So the emotional aspects of handling those are going to be very, very critical. So managing the whole employee experience is going to be very, very critical as we go through this change. The second thing I believe, which is very important, is especially just given how customers will look at technology as they come out of COVID, we will have to have a very strong outreach to customers. And we've started that. We have started that very extensively. We'll have to support them in their absolute relook at how they craft their BCP and they adopt technology for as extreme as 100% work from home as the new normal and implementing these breakthroughs. We will continue working very strongly with the government, not just to fight the fire, but fundamentally establish a very different model of working between governments and businesses. So we are already starting to talk to people like the MSME ministry to allow them to engage with MSMEs in a way that they empower them, not just through schemes and incentives, but empower them with technology. The government's own adoption will have to go through a very radical change, and we're already starting to see some of that. I just sort of, my only one wish is that we don't gravitate back to the old ways of working as we come out of this and we take the learning. One very interesting thing I'll end it this with. I live in a community in Gurgaon, which is of course going through its own stressful times. Everyone, so everyone's kind of wanting to go out and start walking in the greens, and there was this massive challenge happening between people to say, what is the difference between walking in your home and walking on the ground in the lawns, so long as you're keeping distance. So a few of us set a tone that walking in the balconies is possible. So we started a campaign about walking in balconies, and yesterday I clocked about 20,000 steps, which is 15 kilometers walking in the balcony. So we're doing some of these things to educate people about the new normal and be ready for the new normal. So those are the few things, Ajay, and I'll pause and hand it back to you.
Thank you, Karan. Some great words of wisdom. Apart from the fact that 20,000 steps is showing you're looking a bit slimmer, but what I gathered the best out of your talk was the democratization of technology. Sometimes incrementalized changes don't bring tectonic impacts on certain things, and events like these, and that probably runs across all our four speakers today, that they have found amidst adversity and severe adversity that too some real optimism and initiatives and things to look forward to in future. As I go through the various questions and the various participants we have and the kind of questions they have, the list is long. My only request and advice to people who are going to ask questions in future, and also to our four panelists, is try to be as succinct and to the point as possible, because we have a limited time. Our first person to ask the question is Sandeep Gambhir, the MD of Oryx India. Can you please put Sandeep on the line, please?
Hi, Ajay.
Hey, Sandeep.
Hi, good to see you.
Go ahead. Good to see you too. Good.
I was listening to the discussion. First of all, a very big thanks to Deepak for getting such a elite panel. Good listening to everybody. So in the interest of time, I'll just jump to my question. And you answered it in bits and pieces, all of you in some shape and form. People are waiting to get back to offices, whatever you call it, day one or whatever, post-lockdown. And some of you said it's actually the day one is already started. My question is, people will still come to office whatever day they choose to, thinking that things are going to be maybe normal in some shape and form. But when it opens, it's going to be a very different setup, a very different process, a very different framework, not getting used to see faces, places covered with masks, people's faces covered with masks. How do you think you're going to address that challenge? Because it's a new normal while we're trying to embrace it in some shape and form, but doing it with a large population coming in at one place, used to a very different working environment pre-lockdown versus post-lockdown. How do you address that?
Do you have this question for anybody in particular? It may be advisable if you do that.
Okay, so let's get it to Varun, because he is the one who started the discussion.
Okay.
So, well, things will certainly not be the same. I certainly think that people with masks is going to be a little different. And everyone's not going to start with the entire population coming to office on the same day. So it is going to be different, but I think there'll be a lot of learnings from this period that we are going through currently. And I think we will be a lot more efficient in the way we conduct our business. So I guess the adaptability has already started. And as we get to the office, it's going to be a little bit of a release. So we're going to be a little better than what we are today. I see no problem in getting to that reality as the lockdown opens up.
Okay, thank you, Varun. This is a question about consumer attitude, preferences, and behavior, and this is actually my question. A lot is being talked about that certain things at a fundamental level have made irreversible changes in the minds of the consumer, in which in terms of their attitude, their preferences, behavior, and so on. Now, still too early for us to fathom what is this element of irreversible change, and thereby how do marketers respond to that. But how would you reckon, as you start balancing between the immediate micro short term, which is what's going to happen today, will we survive? Marzin was talking about, only companies having only 2.5 months of cash, or call it oxygen in other words for them. How do you manage this balance between that and more strategic, which is what is the consumer thinking? How is he changing? Will he consume, for example, Varun, in your case, biscuits and your categories in a different fashion, in the case of Marzin in a different fashion, and so on and so forth? I would put this question to Varun, you, Marzin, all those who are having strong consumer-facing businesses and who are building brands.
So let me start off. I absolutely agree with you, Ajay. Things are going to be different for a very long period of time. And I'll tell you some of the changes. So clearly what's happening is that hygiene is becoming one of the biggest issues for all consumers. So if you were to go to the streets today, and I would say even after the lockdown opens, the consumption of street food, and I'm talking from my industry standpoint, consumption of street food is going to be at its lowest level for a very, very long time. Right? And that offers the opportunity for packaged food companies with a good reputation, good brands, and also for e-commerce companies like Hari and all of us, to make sure that we provide what the consumer needs, right? But it's very, very important that we adhere to a certain protocol, and we fulfill the promise that we are looking to give to our consumers, right? So I think that's going to be the biggest change. Second, I would say that consumers are going to be they will be consuming more at home rather than on the go. So those trends also are going to be very, very different from where they are today. So catering to a certain kind of product in a certain kind of pack size also becomes important, because consuming at home versus on the go is very, very different. So those are the kind of trends that we'll have to look at and make sure that we adapt to those as we move forward.
Marzin, your views on this?
Yeah, I think these are very, very interesting times. And as they say, there was a BC and an AC, a before Corona and an after Corona. And from what I'm seeing here, from what we are seeing here, is that consumers have become definitely a lot more health and hygiene oriented. We're also seeing the getting back of families together. So there are different types of consumers. There are some who are defeatist. There are some who have become philosophical, and saying that, what is this world coming to? There are some who become stoic and said, this is maybe so there are different kinds and segments and buckets of consumers. But what is interesting is that health and hygiene, I think, will definitely be more. The family as an ecosystem is coming back together. People are going back to their roots. You're talking about Ayurveda, yoga, meditation. It's all coming back in a big way. So that's on one side going back. The other side is going forward. People are becoming more digitally inclined. People are ready to digest education. I mean, my son works out and he has his e-workout on Zoom. I mean, he would have gone to the gym, but he does it. My niece is doing her Cornell program on online. So there's a lot of stuff which is happening on the digital space. Consumers will become more digitally inclined to pay digitally. So I think digital payments will become a big thing. On the other side, we're beginning to see a little more frugality also. So it doesn't spell well for the luxury industry. It doesn't spell well for the, for the experience industry. But I think there are some segments and some industries that will need to change completely. People are ready to work remotely. What is also, I think, at a mind level, I think the husband is beginning to appreciate the wife a lot more by knowing how much work there is in the house. The wife is beginning to appreciate that the husband is trying to help out in the house. So there's the whole value of family, the whole value of relationships. All of these will have huge, impacts on communication. It'll have huge impacts on how people behave, how we put out our advertising, how we look at social media. So all this will change. I also think that, this entire orientation of health and hygiene is not something that will be temporary. I think it's a longer term permanent measure. So these are good things that will come out of it. On the other hand, you will see the consuming class go down a little bit because people are tightening up on salaries, people are tightening up on money. The gig economy will change. So there's lots of changes that will happen. And we're trying to list these down in a structured manner, see how we can address our communication towards this, see how to segment our consumers' mindsets based on this. So very, very, very exciting times.
Excellent, Marzin. We now have Sufal Mehrotra, Vodafone from Vodafone Idea with his question. Sufal, go ahead.
Hello. Hello, can you hear me?
Indeed.
Yeah. Yes. Thanks, Ajay, and thanks, Deepak, for getting some of the best minds on a Saturday morning and getting them on table for me or everybody to ask the questions. My question goes to Karan. First, many congratulations to you, Karan, for the new job. I think two good things have happened with Google in the last couple of months. One is that you have joined them. And second, they have the GCP has crossed $10 billion turnover, and it's emerged as a key growth driver for Google. I've become a big fan and user of Google Meets. I hope next meeting is that Deepak does is on Google Meet and not on Zoom. My question to you is a little ahead of day one. And as everybody said, that day one is probably already there. Every company is working. I want to understand what would be happening after, let's say, 24 months. Where do you see this world? And how do you see all these companies and all of us who are working in the companies? What would be our situation and what are the key changes that would happen at that point in time? If you can help us visualize that.
Sure, absolutely. It's a little difficult to go far out 24 months, but let me take a stab at this. First of all, thank you very much for your comments. Really appreciate that. My view is, and I'll give you a technology views rather than make it a larger aperture conversation. As I said in my conversation, I fundamentally believe that the adoption of technology in the minds of customers will go through a complete change. We were starting to get to a stage where a lot of minimalist views were being taken on, especially the new technologies. A lot of conversations around, let me try it out before I try on scale. Things like AI, things like ML, things like the whole transformation of your data capabilities. There was a lot of testing and trialing happening. My view, that will go away. People will be much more bolder in terms of the art of the possible versus, trying to test. And, I've always said that technology is not the issue, the mindset is. India has kind of become a graveyard of pilots in many forms. People, like in every enterprise, try to recreate stuff without learning from each other. So the scale of adoption, the speed of adoption of technology will massively change. Marzin said something which is very important, which is the mindset will shift from CapEx to OpEx for most customers. Customers will conserve CapEx for their core businesses versus spending it on hardware and software. So people will want to consume in an operational model. So the consumption economy of technology will overtake many, many things of the traditional nature. So that barrier of adoption that has happened for an OpEx model, whether it is SaaS or cloud, I would say fundamentally it will break. People will engineer themselves around technology in a very different way. I gave you the TCS example. It's a very bold example. Think about it, Sufal. A large company as of scale of TCS is thinking that in 5 years, they will get to only 25% of workplace employees being in the workplace. That's radical. So I think there'll be, and I'm again challenging and saying that governments will have to rethink their whole strategy of putting barriers around technology. Something that you today do not understand, put a barrier, take your time to understand before it comes on. That mindset will have to go. Governments will have to be way more open in terms of both adopting themselves and allowing people to adoption. The artificial barriers of geography will have to disappear in the minds of people. The incident this time will actually remove the geographical boundaries in the minds of many people. I hope so. So I think the world is going to become one. The world is one right now. We are all being inflicted with one thing. So I would say that I look up to a very different way of adoption, which is not minimalist in nature, and we learn from each other and adopt on scale. Thank you.
Thanks for
Thank you. Amidst all this upheaval, doom and gloom, let's talk of employee for a moment. And this is a question for mass employers like maybe Hari and probably anybody else. But Hari, I definitely want you to answer this question. The employee morale, to my mind, is at its lowest, at the nadir, as they say. While, all this connectivity, outreach and everything is great, honestly, but there are messages going to go out in terms of salary cuts, job losses, and so on and so forth. And there is anxiety, uncertainty at their end. Given all this, when you hit office in the first day, 5th day, 10th day, you will have to pass on these messages to employees. How would you do that?
Ajay, actually, I'm the wrong person to ask this question to, because, fortunately, touch wood, fortunately for us, the business has been running, and it's, we are actually wanting to employ more and more people, come, give them work, give them salaries. We've been incentivizing a lot of them. We've insured each one, including our outsourced work, people on COVID insurance and, stuff like that. So thankfully, we've not had that situation yet, Ajay. So that's the reason I'm saying that I'm probably the wrong person to ask this question.
Brilliant.
But it's not the more difficult part is this handling people who get back to office, and that's the question that we were talking about a little earlier. And I frankly, I don't have an answer to it. I think Varun did attempt to answer some of that, but really speaking, there'll be a few people who will go back to office, and those are the people who essentially have to go back because they need an office environment, because they're meeting people maybe and meeting customers and stuff like that. What we're trying to do is keep that as little as possible, right? As little as possible, and hence move the whole culture to work from home, so that we don't have to deal with that whole issue of just 10 people, 15 people in office. It used to be a bubbling place. Everybody looking forward to go there, meet people, go for your cigarette break, together, have lunch together, etc., etc., etc. All that is gone, right? You suddenly go there and there'll be some 15 people sitting there because you have social distancing and all kinds of stuff. You can't meet people, you can't touch people, you can't hug people, you can't shake hands. That's going to be a slightly trickier problem for us to deal with. But the first question, thankfully, we are in good shape there, and we've not had the problem.
Would Varun or Marzin attempt that question on employee morale, and how would you give the tough message amidst all this talk about motivation and stuff?
So I'll go here. It's two things. There's a group of people in our company who are dying to come back to work. So I get this message from this guy yesterday who says, "Boss, I want a vacation. I want to go away from home." So there are these guys who really want to come back to work, and they're desperate to come back to work. They want to know, what they can do, because they've had this sitting at home and it's too much. On the other hand, things are not going to be hunky-dory. We know that. And we have tried to address this in there is no easy way to do this. You have to be honest with people. You have to tell them like it is. So we've tried to be as honest as possible in this scenario. We've also tried to be as open and tell them where we stand. We have regular calls. I have my next call on Tuesday with the entire team, where we will be talking to different groups and different businesses and verticals and functions, and tell them exactly where we stand on this. There is an underlying optimism as well. So I think the answer is really to say, let's be honest. Let's tell people where we stand. Let them also know what the issues are. It's not unique to this company. It's not unique to us. It's the whole world is going through this. So I think people have, fundamentally understood that there is a genuine issue out there in the world. It makes the life much easier for people who need to communicate good and bad news. So there is not all good news. There is some amount of news that needs to be also put out, but needs to be put sensitively, needs to be put in an honest way. If some people have been asked to go, there will be, we will be having seminars on them on how to become entrepreneurs. Can they become our business partners in some way? We will be doing a webinar for them on how to go about doing interviewing skills. So the key is to be sensitive. People do understand.
Understand. Our next question. Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, it's okay. As long as it's been answered, I just wanted to say that I'm in Hari's camp. Luckily, business is looking good, so we are not, taking any steps to get people to move away. But you know, if that was to ever come, we will be absolutely transparent and forthright and help them resettle. I think that's the message.
Excellent, excellent. We have a question coming from Dr. N.T. Rao, who is the Vice Chancellor of MIT World Peace University. Can we have Dr. Rao, please?
Hello.
Go ahead.
Yeah, do you hear me?
We can hear you loud and clear. Go ahead.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Ajay. And at the outset, as a knowledge partner of the event, MIT World Peace University is delighted. Please permit me 1 minute. My question will not be short, typical of a teacher. I'm right now biting a Britannia brought home by Hari's big basket. And obviously, I use Mazim's Eureka Forbes. So you're already there in my homes, right? And without Google, we don't survive. And it's such a delight to have the gentlemen who have been there in my homes telling the world how we would expect post-COVID-19. My question would be, my consumers are of a different kind, my students. These are the ones with whom we directly interact. Where here I'm dealing with something like a Hari's big bar. I mean, not even Hari's. So he only delivers. So something like a supermarket where every consumer you handle one to one. So my students have got used to a system of education, of online education, and it's how difficult it would be for those sectors to tell their consumers things have changed and they are back to normal, because they would prefer to be online. So because they've seen the comfort of being taught online. So similarly, there will be some more sectors which would be convenient to work where you don't need to deal with the customers directly and used to online system of this thing. I hope you get what I was trying to hint at. So how do you handle such sectors? Thank you. So it's general. Ajay, you can also answer that. Anyone can answer.
We have a distinguished panel with us today. Anybody would like to take that question, please?
I can take it, Ajay, if that's okay. This is Karan.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead, Karan.
Thank you, Mr. Rao. Thank you for your, and clearly we understand the challenge your industry is going through. As I indicated in my conversation, I think it will be a lost opportunity if we go back to the old. It will be completely a lost opportunity. Forever, we had barriers around online education and we had excuses and excuses of why it cannot be done. Forever, we have had barriers around telehealth on why it cannot be delivered efficiently. And there are more examples across industry. There have been barriers around, why e-commerce will not get to be more than single digit. And I think suddenly we've been dished an opportunity or a situation where all of those reasons and excuses have gone away. So everything is possible. Scale online is possible. Scale online in a very multi-geography is possible. Yes, we are learning the ropes. Yes, we have some challenges. The interactivity has to happen. Tools have to be used. But the opportunity, Mr. Rao, is to not gravitate back to the old and make this the new normal. There are very interesting examples in India that we are working with education institutions, where there's a particular institute that has over 250,000 students. And this is a combination of, both online as well as physical. And they are now working to a model where they will take 250,000 online completely rather than have a middle path. So I think we will have to break tradition again here and not use those old excuses anymore, but simply build on the learnings we've had. We were not ready before COVID, and yet we did all these extremes. E-commerce is the only way we are getting some stuff delivered to our homes. Online is the only way we're able to get some education. So we were not ready with the infrastructure, and yet we are doing this. Imagine if we get the infrastructure ready. So very happy to work with you offline on how you can actually break that model and completely have a different tech-led model.
Thank you, Karan. Our next question, probably one of our last questions, is going to be from Jerry Bindra, MD of Chorus Call.
Thank you, Ajay. Am I audible?
Very much. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, and a very good afternoon to everyone. Thank you for the panel to share your insights and views on this very, very important topic that concerns all of us. My question actually is to all the panel members. Before the virus hit all of us, responsible CEOs everywhere in the world were talking about why it is so critical for businesses to look beyond just the basic objectives of survival and profit maximization. And you're talking about how businesses should give back to the community. And Ajay, you mentioned Jack Ma recently said, well, the only objective for 2020 for business is really how do you survive. So my question to everyone, and whoever really would like to share the views on this, is that given this unprecedented lockdown and all of the challenges that businesses are going through right now in meeting their survival requirements and all of the other internal stakeholders that need to be taken care of, where do you put the priority in your list of priorities? Where do you put this whole objective of giving back to the community? Where do you even see this on your list for this year or next year in terms of getting engaged with meaningful social programs? So please, anyone on the panel or whoever would like to share their views, be very, very interested to hear you out. Thank you.
Would Marzin or maybe Varun take this question?
Yeah. No, I think you bring out a very, very important point. And I think it's very important for people like us who are privileged in a way. And frankly, the kind of, the experience that people on the ground are going through at this point in time, it's really sad to see what's happening to, daily wage earners, etc. So it's our responsibility and, we need to take on that responsibility and to make sure that we give back to society at this point in time, whether it's from an organization perspective or from a personal perspective. I think it's very important. But we've got to remember one thing, as a friend said recently, he said that when you're doing this, please leave your camera at home, right? It's not the time to, do something and then try to talk about it. I think it's the time to really make sure that we give back to society in a way that it benefits a lot. And we've also got to remember one thing, that, whatever may be the state of affairs with people on the ground, they are still very, very self-respecting, right? So if you're doing something for them, do it in a way that they don't feel that they are useless. They feel that, this is an interim and they are going to get back to their normal life at some stage. So one, keep your camera at home. Second, make sure that you always remember that every human being is self-respecting, and they are not happy to get freebies all the time. So keeping those two as basic principles, I think it's very, very important that we give back to society at this point in time.
I'll weigh in here as well a little bit. I think the time has come for, to be guided by our North Star. And, many organizations, can you hear me? Yeah. Can I be heard? Am I audible?
Yeah, very much, Marzin. Go ahead.
Okay. So I think, purpose-driven organizations with a North Star, with a central thing will definitely shine out, will definitely stand out. It's not just a good to have. I think it's a must-have for companies. I think it's a key need for every company to take into cognizance what the larger world needs and what society needs, and making a positive difference is something that is absolutely critical. So this is not a good to have. I think it's a must-have. What we are also seeing is that it's not just about a company doing something. It's about the entire tentacles of the company, even people. We hear so many beautiful stories of people who have gone out given NGOs and poor people food. They're going out with their masks and their protective equipment and doing things for the community. As a thing, we are trying to felicitate these people. We are celebrating them. We are honoring them. There are people who are doing this in any case. There are good hearts everywhere. All we need to do is recognize this, accept this, embrace it, and move forward. So this is a must-have for every company if we want to survive, if we want to grow, and if we want to make sure that we live in a larger ecosystem. So the familial spirit, the family spirit has become more of a society now and more of humankind per se. So that's it from my side.
Thank you, Marzin. I think, ladies and gentlemen, we could have gone on for maybe another hour or so because we have a few more questions, but we will have to call a stop here because we have already gone past our deadline of 12:15. Let me first thank Karan, Varun, Marzin, and Hari for some outstanding, as I've been saying, golden nuggets from some of the best CEOs in the country. Personally, while I have learned a lot and I have lots of copious notes I've been taking, but to me, 4 or 5 things stand out. First is positivity and happiness. What we heard across from all of them was, despite all the adversity, they are finding moments of happiness, moments of opportunity, moments of joy for themselves, their families, and their organizations, which is outstanding. Never have we seen a calamity or call it a challenge like this before, but all these 4 CEOs are coming out with a lot of positivity. Amidst adversity, they have found opportunities, which is always a positive mind and looking forward mind. Third, I would say, is their ruthless focus on internal customers and external customers, the visits to customers, the constant connect programs with internal customers, because these are fundamental to our survival. COVIDs will come and COVIDs will go, but customers and our employees will always stay with us. Fourth, also what I heard a lot was on culture. While they have been distant and they have not been physically been present with the teams, but how they have kind of brought in a certain kind of glue to galvanize and to kind of the team connected. And in adversity, sometimes people say that teams come closer, and probably all of them have found that opportunity in bringing the teams closer. My last 2 points are with regards to democratization of technology. Clearly, certain things are going to get catalyzed by virtue of something like COVID. And one of them is the way in which organizations as well as individuals are going to consume technology. So with those few words, I would say thank you, everybody. Thank you, all our esteemed panelists. And Deepak, back to you for your concluding words.
I think excellent and engaging conversation. So a big thank you, Ajay, to you, Hari, Marzin, Varun, Karan. Thank you very much. And, we are all ready to fly, really looking forward to it. And I just hope that the corporates and the CEOs bring a little change in the leadership style, and they don't play safe. And they try to cover up the lost year, the first half of the year and the second half, and make it happen. So stay healthy, stay safe. We all see you next weekend with another conversation on how to manage finances in these times. And before I say a final goodbye, if I could ask Ajay to hum a song to summarize this entire situation. Ajay.
Deepak, this was not a part of our deal. You put me on a spot now. God.
I introduced you as an accomplished singer, so I'm sure you can do that, Ajay.
Okay, quickly, look, this was a short video I had kind of recorded, just a few days back. It's been on life, what it is today, the song out of the 4 or 5 songs I've sung there. It epitomizes probably what life is and how we should live it together and move along together, because COVIDs will come and COVIDs will go. तुम भी चलो हम भी चले चलती रहे जिंदगी ना ज़मी मंजिल ना आसमां जिंदगी है जिंदगी तुम भी चलो हम भी चले चलती रहे जिंदगी.
Thank you. Goodbye, folks. Thank you so much. Thank you, Ajay.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thanks. Bye.